Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In podcast. This week we head over to Abu Dhabi for a loaded pay-per-view. Early day of fights with the prelim starting at 10 a.m. Eastern time in the morning. And our main event couldn't get any better, man. A rematch between top pound-for-pound fighters Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. Our co-main event is another short notice bout, but another exciting one between Khamzat Chimaev and the former welterweight champ Kamaru Usman. Our feature bout of the pay-per-view is Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. Man, how can I leave out the fact that Trevor Peak and Sedriques Dumas are taking over Abu Dhabi this weekend? I'm really excited for this pay-per-view. I think they put together a really good card for us. Before I hand it over to you to go over last week's card, I want to give you your props, brother. Jonathan Martinez bet, not even that we were head-to-head on it, like 4 units on a minus 105 that turned out to look minus 500. I was trying to look back, and I know we bet Grosso and Grosso sub at big underdog odds, but for me, man, that honestly comes to one of your best bets this year. I really like that, Jonathan Martinez. Wanted to give you props before I hand it over there to you.
I appreciate it, man, for sure. Definitely a mixed bag of results this week. We'll look over at your card first. Let's see. You had Sadiq Youssef over Barbosa. Almost was a really easy cash right there. Definitely would have been nice to end the night on a high note right there. Adrian Yanez versus Jonathan Martinez. I think Yanez moving forward, he just needs to add some more attacks into his arsenal. He's only got the boxing, and I think if he could incorporate some other aspect of MMA, it'd help him out tremendously. Andre Petroski, I ended up telling you on this one and really feeling good about it by the time the fight started, and dude didn't even show up for it, pretty piss poor effort right there.
Especially for a guy who was on like a 5-fight win streak in the UFC, like to take a short notice bout like that. I mean, very little
wasn't the cleanest shot that landed,
Right. Very little upside for a guy who was on a 5-fight win streak. Looking back,
yeah,
kind of a stupid move.
TJ Brown, man, that sucks. Darren Elkins cooked him to the bone, and Brown just his fight IQ. It wasn't. It's never there.
It's like he could have disengaged from the grappling, but he would go for a guillotine or something.
And it's like, depending on the matchup, Elkins still has it. I kind of like that we're going to see him for at least a couple more years after that performance. Like, that's kind of nice. He'll be a fade in the future. Best bet of the night, I think, Chris Gutierrez over Haley Alatane. You got an awesome CLV on it. And then he also looked like what he closed at.
Minus didn't hedge out.
Yes. That was the right choice for sure. Petroski by submission, I tailed that as well. Just never even had a shot, never had legs. Man, Alex Silva versus Melissa Dixon under 2.5. We were both on that. That's didn't hit. Whatever. And then the first fight of the night, Dakota minus 3.5. Little bit of a sweat, but I think it was the rightful 30-27 on one judge's scorecards, and then 1 round given to Yoder on the other 2. I think that's appropriate. You ended up the night minus 4.23 units, and we pretty much just switched from the week before because, like you said, I had some really great bets, but only I could have only profited less than a unit after hitting both my 2 and 4 unit bet. Straight pick too. Vivian Arujau plus 134. I thought it was a 50-50 fight. Had 2 units on her, and it was a girl fight, man. It's just take the dog and hope for the best. Jonathan Martinez, those leg kicks are disgusting. That was my biggest bet. And then all these are just stabs. I had Brown wins by TKO. That didn't happen. Thankfully, Elkins kind of saved me. Had fight doesn't go the distance, as I did think that both guys had some finishing upside. I was on that under 2.5 with Alexiva Dixon. The fight ends by sub with Petroski Pereira. Petroski by submission. Petroski sub round 1. Man, I was trying to cash big last weekend, and those just all looked like terrible bets right there. I did hedge my 4 units on Jonathan Martinez with a Yanez by decision. I was worried that this was going to be a really close fight, and just knowing what Yanez is to the UFC, they might have given him the nod. That never came, never had to happen. McKinney sub round 1, and then Moreau wins in round 2 and round 3. I think, again, it's just like odds that got to me. I tried to get cute, and we knew McKinney was going to go out there and starch him. Yeah. I just thought maybe he'd take him down first. All of that to give away some profit. And then the last one, which, man, I was – it would have been fine. Everything would have been fine had I just hit this parlay right here. I had Ducote to win and Yusuf Barbosa. Fight doesn't go the distance. I mean, there were so many times where I thought that fight was about to finish, and it didn't. So another -1.5 units right there, plus 0.71 units on the night for what should have been a really good night. I did kind of piss away some profit with the stabs, but can't help myself, man. I don't plan on changing it in the future. All right, so we start off the night in the middleweight division where we see Bruno Silva taking on the debuting Sharabutdin Magomedov. Sharabutdin, he's got a lot of hype around him, man. He's not your typical Russian. He's mostly striking. He's got great leg kicks when he's in the clinch. He makes you pay when exiting the clinch. He's got great knees, a really really great hip movement. He can get his foot up to your face. And I don't know. Okay, so look, he has great hips whenever he's trying to defend takedowns. He's got dexterous hips. That's what I was looking for, where he's able to just bring his leg up to your head while exiting the clinch. And I do think that that's where he's going to find Bruno Silva lacking. Bruno Silva a little bit reckless with his forward pressure, and he does exit that clinch predictably. I have written right here that I see Shara finding that KO in the second or third round once he gets those reads when Bruno's exiting the clinch. I do think that we do see a Shara KO, and I have added him as a parlay piece, so I'm feeling pretty good about him.
Yeah, man, you and I both are on Sharabutdin this week. I'm pumped for this guy's debut. I think he's one of the more legit guys that's not signed to the UFC. I think he's the #1 middleweight in Russia. You see a guy with fantastic striking, great size for the middleweight division. I think he's going to have a significant speed edge on Bruno Silva. I think he throws things a lot more straight while Bruno Silva throws a lot of hooks. I think he's going to beat him to the punch, just a little bit more technical everywhere. If anybody's going to ground anybody, I know it's not Magomed's go-to, but I do think he has the wrestling if needed here. Biggest advantage, durability and gas tank, man. I think this guy can push a really good pace. You see him get late finishes. And as far as durability, Bruno's 34 years old at this point. Fight miles really seem to be adding up. And, he kind of gets his props as the one guy who was able to absorb Alex Pereira's power and go the distance with him. But it almost kind of seems like it's been a detriment to his career going forward. Seems like he might have took too much damage in that fight. You see him get hurt badly, dropped on the feet by guys like Gerald Meerschaert, Brendan Allen, guys who are grapplers first, honestly, out there dropping him on the feet. Jinh kind of bringing question marks in at this stage. But, the one thing he has is fight-changing power. And, Magomed is going to exchange with him on the feet. I don't like what I'm seeing from Bruno Silva lately. I was kind of shocked Magomed wasn't put on like the pay-per-view or higher up on the prelims, but sometimes that first fight of the night, they're trying to showcase that guy they really like. And I'll definitely be up at 9 a.m. Central Time watching him get the job done, man. Moving on, Jinh Frey, Victoria Dudakova. Frey's almost touching 40 at this point, trains out of her own gym. I think she's got like a 2-5 UFC record. A girl that's been slept badly by Viana, submitted by Kay Hansen. And you know what? Dudakova's young. She's improving. She doesn't have all the skills in the world right now, but she is a tough SOB, man. Watching back that Contender Series fight, there's not a lot of girls. Like, I say this pretty confidently, man. There's not a lot of girls who fight through that fight. She looked like she tore her knee apart. She looked like Josh Emmett out there, barely being able to stand up, but still fighting through the fight. That tells me a lot, man. That tells me the girl's willing to do pretty much anything to win. I give her the age or the advantages and all the intangibles here. I do think she could be the first girl to really ground Jinh Frey and have success with her there. I'm going to side with Dudakova. I laid chalk on Ducote last week, and I almost feel like it's even more warranted here. I feel like Dudakova is going to get the job done pretty easy, man. You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, so a couple of good things for Dudakova. As a woman, she really knows how to plant her feet and generate power with her punches, which I really like. She has great entries on her takedowns. She times them up really, really well. And then you talked about her fighting through that knee injury. It really shows you that she wants it, and she is just at a different point in her career than Jinh Frey. Frey, last time out, was the first time that she ever wore knee pads. So I do think that this is the slow decline of the 38-year-old in MMA. It's actually the first time that she shot for over 5 takedowns. And, she landed more takedowns in that last fight that she lost than she had in her 4 fights prior to that. I do think that she's having to start to change her game to fit her body at this point in her career. And I don't think that this is the fight. This is the fight to do it in. Dudakova is great on the ground. I don't think that she's going to be able to get that wrestling mixed in here. And whenever they are on the feet, Frey starts to slow down. She keeps her head on a center line. And Dudakova, if she's planting her feet, I think that she could knock out Frey. I forget who it was. No, it was one of the good-looking girls, my girl, Polyana Viana. Yeah, Polyana Viana knocked her out. I think that there's similar. There's a possibility for Dudakova to do that as well. I've got Dudakova inside the distance. Instead of trying to get cute and playing that, I just parlayed her because I do think that she could win this any way she wants. But Dudakova is the pick for sure, and depending on what numbers get put out there for props later on in the week, I would consider putting just a little bit more on Dudakova inside the distance because I think she has her way here.
Yeah, one thing just to add there, Dudakova, I'm pretty sure I want to see these girls weigh in because I'm pretty sure Dudakova was like a 125 or 135 when she first started her career. We got a girl who was an atom weight in Invicta, who's fighting at 115 just to be in the UFC. It's not even her weight class. So I think there could be some size disparity here, and that means a lot in women's MMA.
Absolutely. Almost everything. We move up to the featherweight division. Nathaniel Wood taking on Mohammad Naimov. This is my first dog of our first dog of the
little
card.
Podcast underdog.
Yeah, we love that. And he's sitting at an awesome price at plus 270. The bad thing about Naimov is his loss to Colin Anglin back in 2020 on the Contender Series. It has not aged well, and I think that that's why you saw him come in as such a big dog in his debut up at lightweight against Jamie Mullarkey. And I don't know. Looking at that fight, I thought he showed good takedown defense, or at least a good get-up game. He didn't look undersized against one of the biggest lightweights in the division in Jamie Mullarkey. And, I don't like that he fights off his back foot, but he is able to switch stances. I think he'll land the harder shots here. And I think the size, he's going to match up really well with Nathaniel Wood, who's coming up from bantamweight. I don't know. Wood is good. He's technical in every sense of the word, but I don't think that he has anything about his game that makes him a minus 300. Even in his last fight against Fili, he's dropped 2 times. And so you see this unanimous decision on Tapology, but it really doesn't tell the whole story. Like, the dude has defensive holes. And I think somebody like Naimov can make this a really, really close fight. So sitting at plus 270 and me thinking that this is more of a toss-up, pretty easy decision to be on the Naimov side here, even if I might give a slight edge to Wood.
Yeah, well, I'm with you. We see the fight pretty damn similar. Looking at it, this is one where I was kind of looking at the guys, taping it before I was able to get my eyes on the odds. Then I see the odds, and my first thought is they're extremely wide, man. First reason being you got Muhammad fighting in Abu Dhabi. He's also coming off of a KO loss up a weight class on short notice as an underdog. How oftentimes do we see the market overreact there and him come in as a favorite? And so to still keep him as a big underdog, I don't know, maybe the market hasn't reacted enough, in my opinion. Second reason, never been that high on Nathaniel Wood, just being 100% honest with you. I texted you yesterday and called him like an in-betweener. I think the guy is – I think that weight cut to 35 takes a toll on him, but I do think he's too small for 145. And as he climbs the ranks, that size is going to get him in trouble. As far as martial artists go, though, like you said, slight edge to him, because I do think he's the superior martial artist here. But I have reason to believe, somewhat from that Feely fight, that maybe he's a little bit chinny. Maybe the power at 145 is a little bit different. And that is the one area I really could see Naimov getting it done here. I don't really have the clearest read on who I think is going to be victorious, but I do think that the line is wide. I think you got a guy, Nathaniel Wood, who wins on thin margins, who typically wins by decision. It's going to be hard to cover a minus 300 price tag that way. And so ultimately, man, I haven't locked it in, but I'm gonna be on the same side with you, Muhammad Naimov.
If he doesn't get those knockdowns back on Feely, I mean, he's lost 2 rounds there, so that's something else. And just to touch on a fighter coming in their debut, getting a huge upset and then getting recorrected, we're going to run into that later on in the card with Victor Henry, who came in as a plus 380 against Raoni Barcelos and then a minus 400 against Rafael Assunção in his next time out, and he loses. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about here. So love that we're both on the same side of a big dog like that.
Good stuff, man. I think we're moving on to a fight here in Anshul Jubli and Mike Breeden that neither one of us are too interested in. On paper, the fight seems to be one-sided. I feel like the UFC has an outcome that they have in mind, and a Jubli quick finish, it's always on the table, but I'm not sold, man. Breeden's a lot tougher than guys give him credit for. I think Alexander Hernandez and Terrence McKinney are twice the talent of Jubli. I think they're twice as dangerous in round 1 as Jubli. I think the guy is going to try to mix things up, try to wind up on top of Mike Breeden, and damn, man, Breeden's ground game, he doesn't have the best takedown defense, but he's got a good get-up game, man. He made Danton Levy work for a lot of those takedowns, showed a great gas tank still in the third round. He's got some good boxing combinations. That's really it for Mike Breeden. There's not a lot of skill set there that you like. The UFC seems to kind of bring him in to lose to the guys they want to get on track, but I'm not sold on this Jubli guy whatsoever. Not sold on his finishing ability. Not sold on his gas tank. I don't think he'd get many wins at the highest level, even if he gets through Mike Breeden. I don't have the balls to pick Mike Breeden or bet on Mike Breeden, but I don't see Jubli covering this price tag. I'm going to pick him, though, man. It's hard to pick Mike Breeden to win a UFC fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Jubli, although I couldn't agree more that it's like we haven't seen very promising prospects out of India, and I'm not sure that he's the answer. One thing that is going for him is we haven't seen him lose yet, so that's, there's still some unknown surrounding him as a fighter. With Mike Breeden, we've known 4 times now he's not UFC caliber. I mean, he didn't win on the Contender Series and then 3 straight losses in the UFC. It's just simple. He is not UFC caliber, where I do think that there's still some hope for Jubli here. So while the price tag sucks to pay, I do think that he's the rightful favorite, considering Breeden hasn't shown me anything that I want to back. So, Jubli's the pick there. Moving up to the middleweight division, Sedriques SD Dumas taking on Abu Azaitar. This is, I don't know, I'm probably looking forward to this fight.
I know.
More than I should, at least. I want this one on the main card. I like SD Dumas. Not that he's a good fighter. I just think that he's a cool personality to bring into the Abu Dhabi.
Right.
I think Sedriques is, I compared him to like William Knight, where he just completely relies on his athletic abilities. I think that he's pretty green in every aspect of MMA. I think when he's in there against somebody who's super technical, he's going to get exposed. I'm not sure if the 37-year-old on a 2.5-year layoff is going to be able to do it. But Azaitar, I think if he grounds him early and then just goes back to the well with that over the course of 15 minutes, that's how you beat Sedriques. Just like Cody Brundage tried, but I do think that just neutralizing Sedriques' length and athleticism on the feet is how you beat somebody like him. Abu has those skills, but he's old, and we don't know how he's going to react to these punches. So I'm personally looking to play the under on this fight. I do think that both guys have a lot of finishing upside, and we're going to get a pretty good number on some middleweights. And I love unders on middleweights. So Sedriques will be the pick. I do think that he'll catch Abu, but I would not be surprised if Abu just outclasses him before he gets tired on Saturday.
No disagreements for me here, man. The market's kind of been all over the place with Sedriques Dumas. He opens up as a massive favorite to Josh Frim, loses that fight. Then he's an underdog to Cody Brundage, wins that fight. I do feel like the market kind of has it correct this time, opening him up around the minus 175 range. I agree with the money coming in on him. He's not really a fighter I like to personally back at big chalk, and so I plan on looking at the under 2.5 as well. But 10 years younger, man, far more athletic, faster, big size advantage. The guy's been way more active lately. You had to talk about Abu coming off like a 2.5-year layoff. The last time we saw him fight against Marc-Andre Barriault, it was like Dada 5000 level of gassing out, man. It was bad. Another thing, Sedriques Dumas has fought 17 times since Abu last beat Vitor Miranda. The activity is 100% in Dumas's favor. He is clearly the one, younger, improving at this point, more active in the cage. I feel like Abu's chances of winning are like you, or to find a way on top and stall and drag this fight out. I like the takedown defense I see from Dumas. I like the nasty front choke series. He's long. He's dangerous with it. I think he's going to catch him with a sub, but I also like his ability to put him away on the feet here as Abu's going to sling some big hooks. Under 2.5 I think is a really good play here on some middleweights with high finishing upside. Really excited for that fight as well. Moving on to Javid Basharat versus Victor Henry, who you referenced a couple minutes ago, man. Massive fan of Javid Basharat. Massive fan of putting my money on him and his brother. But the price tag's pretty much gotten out of hand. Looking at minus 600, I struggle because I don't see any value left in minus 600 whatsoever, but I don't see where Victor Henry wins the fight. Like, Javid to me is a guy who has very little weaknesses in his game. The guy can strike. He has great footwork at distance. He's patient. The fight IQ there, doesn't put himself in danger. He can mix it up. He can land takedowns. But honestly, man, minus 600, it's wide. Victor is a veteran of this sport. Victor can throw big time volume. Victor has a great gas tank. I think he's 29 fights and he's never been finished. He's durable as can be. I don't know, man. I do think this fight goes to decision at like 70% of the time. I think the line indicates that as well. I think Javid by decision, here in the Middle East. I don't think that's going to go Victor Henry's way if it's close. But I don't know how Javid gets the finish as minus 600, so it kind of forces me to pass at this point. So I'm going to go Javid Basharat by decision. Probably won't have any action on the fight, though. The line's gotten away.
Yeah, you sure as hell don't want to pay minus 160 to have him by decision,
Yeah,
I'll tell you
how I pick him.
Yeah, I know, right? I'll tell you how he finishes it, though. Just like his brother did in his last fight, by submission. Because Victor Henry is somebody who super, super durable. I don't think you can knock that dude out. And Basharat should know that by this point as well if he's done his tape study. I think that he's going to have a clear advantage on the ground, especially if he can get on top. And just like his brother in his last time out, I think I bet his submission prop when he was a huge favorite at plus 340. I think we're getting plus 400 on Basharat here. I think that there's potential for that. I don't know if it'll actually find its way on my card, but I'm just saying as far as looking at this fight and how I want to bet it, unless you're taking a dog shot on Henry, which I don't really recommend because I haven't seen many holes in Basharat's game.
Right.
I think the Basharat by submission is another prop where he's gone to decision in his last 3 or 4, so people have forgotten that he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist, and that's where I do think he holds the advantage here. So Basharat by submission would be the play I'd want to play. But after missing all those stabs last week, I don't know. It's tough to actually put that on my card. Moving up to the lightweight division, Muhammad Yahya taking on Trevor Peak, Tennessee boy Trevor Peak. Man, I think I'm on the Peak side just slightly, as everybody has piled on him as a favorite this week, and he's moved up into the minus 160s. I can't do that. We know how Trevor Peak fights, man. It's super, super entertaining, but it's not technical at all. He's throwing hammer fists standing up. Yahya, he's got a game opponent here, somebody who I don't think they're going to see the judges' scorecards unless it's another Chepe fight. And I'll pay money to see that go to decision every single day. I don't think that that's a very likely outcome for Trevor Peek fights. So I've thought about trying to incorporate the under 2.5 on this fight with a couple of different things at minus 285. But it might just be a stay away fight. Grab your popcorn and enjoy yourself with Trevor Peek fighting.
Yeah, gonna be a good one, man. But when I see plus money on a number like I did with Chepe against someone like Peek, it is tempting, man, because you bias aside, you have to be truthful with yourself, regardless of how much you want to cheer for him. And he's a one-dimensional guy. He's a brawler. Not a lot of technical, aspects behind anything. He's outgunned in a lot of aspects in MMA. But you can't teach heart. And Trevor has just about more of it than anybody in the UFC, a brick head to go along with it. He's as tough as they come, man. And so at the same time, he's a very easy guy to put your money on. But at minus 160, I just can't do it, And truth be told, when I see this fight, it's very, very volatile fight. And I think it's a win-win for the UFC regardless. On one hand, you have Muhammad Yahya, who is an Abu Dhabi-based fighter, get a win in his home country. And on the other hand, if Trevor Peek comes out here and wins, he's showcased for the world to see, man. And I don't know. Watching that just clicks with people, man, and Trevor Peek is potentially going to get another viral TKO on Saturday. But I could also see him potentially having, trouble keeping the fight on the feet, getting taken down. We've seen Peek also have, I think the way Peek fights and the way Yahya keeps his kind of hands down and is willing to engage, I think it's open for him to get TKO too, man. I think it's a can't miss fight, but I do think it's a very, very volatile fight. Maybe if there was still minus 120s on Peek or something, maybe I'd force a play on our Tennessee boy, but at minus 160, I do have to lay off, although Peek inside the distance is my pick.
I mean, you bring up a good point that if I was Muhammad Yahya and I could pick anybody on the UFC roster at 155 with the right name value and not enough skills to back it up, it is Trevor Peek. So oddly enough, it might be a setup spot for Muhammad Yahya debuting here. So
UFC benefits either way.
Mm-hmm. I'm fine with just laying off with that.
Moving down to flyweight, prelim main event, we have Tim Elliott taking on Mohammad Mokaev. I know who the UFC wants to win this fight. I do think Mohammad Mokaev wins this fight. But it's going to be hard to cover the price tag, especially early on in the fight. Elliott's a tough, experienced, durable vet, and I think early on in the fight, he's going to be hard to get out of there. He's also got really good wrestling. He's a great scrambler. You've seen his sneaky guillotine a couple times. But the pace that this fight is going to be fought at, Tim's going to slow down, man, and I trust the young Mokaev way more later in this fight. We've seen Mokaev in compromising positions, Gordon, Fialho. It does make you a bit scared as he climbs the ranks. But in that Fialho fight, man, I saw a young kid, much like Dudakova, who refuses to quit, man. That tells me a lot on a very young guy. I think he's destined for greatness. I don't know how soon it is. I know a win over Tim Elliott does start getting you top 10, top 5 matchups. It's something that I don't know if he's ready for yet. But I think Muhammad Mokaev is the truth, man. I think he's going to submit Tim Elliott in the second or third round in one of these grappling transitions.
Yeah, so I'm also on Mokaev's side. I've backed him in like every single one of his fights in the UFC. And it is a little bit more of a sweat than you ever want it to be. Right. And so I think this time, given the line and given that this is probably one of the best, the best competition that he's faced so far in the UFC, yeah. I think I am just going to lay off and kind of use this as a fight to determine whether I want to play him in the future or not. Because he is kind of getting to that point where it's he's going to have to show up. There's no more Malcolm Gordons left to fight, and it only goes up from here. So I am curious to see if he can keep up with the pace of Tim Elliott and Elliott's scramble ability. I do think that could throw some issues, but as far as I can tell, this should be Mokaev's fight. So I'm with you on sticking with him, but he's not entering any of my parlays. I can't justify laying the juice on him. So another just sit back and enjoy it fight.
You and me both.
This next fight I do have a little bit of money on. It's at bantamweight with Said Nurmagomedov taking on Muin Gafurov. I think that Said has some pretty distinct advantages here, man. I think that this is a super buy low spot considering his past few performances. The one against Said Yakub. I mean, I had Said Nurmagomedov in that fight. I counted it as a loss. I was like, okay, he's getting absolutely whooped right here, ragdolled. And then somehow MMA did its thing, and he was able to wrap up a front choke and bail me out there. But that was not a good bet. And then against Jonathan Martinez, which that's aging well, at least that's aging well, and probably a robbery. But I think that this is a buy low spot. Muin is not somebody who I have a lot of faith in. I think that Tajikistan has been getting quite the push, but I do think that Said has measurable advantages almost everywhere. And if he wants to, he could probably win this relatively easy. So I have put him into my parlay with Dudakova.
Yeah, I'm a minus 207s hanging out there still for Said Nurmagomedov, and I'm tempted to just hit it straight, man. I'll be honest with you. He was like north of minus 200 against Jonathan Martinez. I did bet Jonathan Martinez at plus 200, and like you said, possibly a gifted decision, but clearly on the right side of the number there, and a pretty similar price tag here, but I think for much, much better reason. When I watch tape on these guys, I don't see how Gafurov wins the fight. Said to me is bigger, longer, more dangerous, more athletic. Intangibles 100% on his side. This is a striking affair for 15 minutes. That's Said's game all day. I think Muin is going to try to mix it up. We've seen Stamen try to mix it up. We've seen Sedriques mix it up. And even when Nurmagomedov is gassed, that front choke series is dangerous, man. I think it's something that could present itself here against Gafurov as well. The one downside of Said is his gas tank. He does, I don't know if he cuts a lot of weight, if he expends a lot of energy with his fighting style. But I don't really think Muin's the one to exploit it, man. Quite frankly, I'm not sold on Muin's gas tank either. I think Said can win this by a submission. I think he could win by knockout. I think he could take home a very clean decision here as well. I think there's many paths to victory for Said to cover minus 200, and so I'm going to have him on my card as well, man. Maybe parlayed with the SD Dumas under 2.5 is what I was looking at. Moving on, Ikram Aliskerov versus Warlley Alves at 185. I was excited to see Imavov and Ikram fight. I thought that was going to be a really, really good fight. Ikram, his debut, man, the TK over to Phil Halls, it's really nothing special, but it is as clean as they come, man. The guy's only professional loss is to Khamzat Chimaev. I think he's going to win a lot of UFC fights. He's very well-rounded. Outside of getting caught early by Warlley Alves in round one, I expect him to put him away, man. Alves on short notice up a weight class. He's not the one to hand Ikram his second professional loss, man. I just don't see it. I think Ikram's got him covered everywhere. I think Ikram finishes in the second or third round. I think we both got him parlayed this week. He's one of my more confident parlay legs on the whole card.
Yeah, dude. I also think that. I think I do have him in a parlay. It's just Warlley Alves has been the guy to ruin good fighters. Like if you look at his last 4 wins, they're over 10-1, 14-2, 14-4, and 10-1 Munir Laziz. Like this is kind of the exact type of guy that Warlley shows out for whatever reason. But like you said, like I really do think Ikram has all of the advantages. The UFC push, especially, like they want Ikram to win so that they can set up a storyline with him and Khamzat Chimaev. And I really do think that this is a spot where the UFC is, no matter what, they were keeping this fight together, the same as the Chimaev fight. They're keeping that fight on the card. They don't care what they have to do. If they have to give Kamaru Usman $1 million to accept this fight,
all right,
so be it. They're keeping these 2 fights on the card. So yeah, Ikram Aliskerov as a parlay piece, even though it's a shit price, I think he just has to withstand some early pressure in that first round. And then after that, it really goes downhill for Warlley Alves, who surprisingly is only like 31 or 32.
Yeah,
but
right.
It just seems like he has some fight miles on him. And I do
If
think
you asked me, I would have told you 37.
I would have told you 37 on the dot, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why that is, but he was a whole lot younger than I thought he was.
Yeah.
Either way, Ikram's also in his MMA prime, and I don't think that this is a spot where Warlley's going to upset anybody here. Moving up to the light heavyweight division, Magomed Ankalaev taking on Johnny Walker. Man, I'll tell you, it is hard to back Ankalaev after having him to win – him to have the belt by the end of the year against Jan Blachowicz at plus 1,000.
I completely forgot about that.
To win his $500 and he goes through a draw with Jan Blachowicz. I can't
punch him to do it.
That sucked so bad, dude. Yes, he should win. I think we have thought this for a long time. He's the best light heavyweight on the roster. It's not even really close. It's just like, how does he want to fight when he comes in there? Yep. I think he has such a significant grappling advantage over everybody that if he wanted to use that as his path to victory, he could. It's just he likes to strike. And recently, at least with Johnny Walker, he's realized that, he doesn't have the greatest chin, and he's got to do everything in his power to protect that chin. And so he's taking a lot less damage, a lot less risk whenever he's fighting. And we've seen that, his fight style hasn't been as exciting anymore. And I think he's got a perfect dance partner to go to the judges' scorecards, man. Like, this is like, I could see this being just a shitter. Yeah, a little bit of a snooze fest. So I've got Ankalaev to win. I've got him to win. He should walk through Johnny Walker. No pun intended. I've got Ankalaev. I just can't trust him.
Yeah. I did parlay Ankalaev. I got him with Sharabutdin, 1.5 units at minus 115. I feel like Magomed wins this fight 7-8 times out of 10, man. I like skill for skill. It's Ank is way more well-rounded, a whole lot more technical on the feet. You said, mixed up lane. I think the takedowns would be very smart here. You saw him enter with a very dumb game plan in the Blachowicz fight, and in the championship rounds does what he should have done since round one. Great gas tank. The guy doesn't really get put in dangerous situations a lot. The durability massively swings his favor. But two things, man. Fights down to his competition, almost plays with his food a little bit. That's a little bit of a worry. Not that I think it's going to cause him to lose the fight. Sometimes he doesn't have the sense of urgency. He kind of lets his opponents dictate the pace of the fight. That's kind of why I'm hoping Johnny Walker, while he's kind of changed his style lately, the old Johnny Walker was the type to really bring what I want out of Magomed Ankalaev, like Kutelaba did, And then another thing, what's his mindset after kind of being what he considers robbed of gold? He's standing there saying, "Give me my belt" after the fight. And Dominic Reyes, that's the guy that, for me, that holds on to that close title fight loss that he thought he should have won and was a detriment to his career going forward. So I hope that's behind Ankalaev. I think it's a significant step down from Blachowicz. I just see plenty of different ways that Ankalaev could win this fight. And if he has any sense of urgency, he could get Johnny Walker out of there on Saturday. Move on to our main and co-main event, man. Khamzat Chimaev versus Kamaru Usman. A late notice fight, elite matchmaking, even better fight than we probably had before. I have to be realistic with myself, man. And Khamzat truly might be the best fighter on the roster underneath 205 pounds. I think the guy is as legit as they come. He's got the stand-up. He's got the ground game, submissions. I think the guy is a generational talent. We've seen him tested now against Gilbert Burns, seen him push through adversity. I think that was much needed for a guy who thought he was just going to run through everybody in the UFC. The gas tank is kind of the one concern for me here. And I'm hoping that it is improved after Burns kind of humbled him a little bit. But he has been out, for over a year now. And that is one thing Kamaru Usman does have as an elite gas tank. But he's getting up there in age, man. He's lost the belt, unsuccessful in getting it back. I don't know. Seems like he's chasing the bag, searching for answers here, moving up a weight class. I don't know if welterweight's stagnant, if he don't want to fight Shavkat, if you don't want to fight Bilal. I don't know. But this move kind of seemed like a desperate attempt to stay relevant, in my opinion. I do feel like at the end of the day, it is a fight between elite fighters. But I'm on Khamzat. I know you're on Khamzat inside the distance. I told you I think that is a little tricky. Is Kamaru Usman? He's been finished twice in his career, I think. But, one was a head kick with 50 seconds left in the fight. There's signs of diminishing durability, Colby and Burns wobbling him. But I do think there's a good chance Khamzat actually wins this fight by decision on Saturday. So that's the way I'm leaning, man.
Yeah, so I think that this was you nailed it. This was his last desperate attempt to stay relevant. He's 36 years old, man. He's 36 years old, and he took this fight because the UFC guaranteed him that he would get a title shot if he were to win this. And he knows that the other options, whether it's in his current weight class to fight Shavkat or it's up a weight class, is to catch somebody off guard, man. He's not good enough to win anymore. You talked about possibly the durability kind of lessening. He's always been thought of as somebody who has a fraudulent chin. Like, we're not sure if that chin's actually there. And then Colby touches him, Leon flatlines him, and then it looked like Kamaru didn't even have the confidence in his next bout to take the risks to actually win that fight against Leon Edwards. Now against Khamzat Chimaev is the first time where he will have to be on the defensive the entire time in his fights. Usually it's him who's able to use that huge 170-pound frame to push his opponents up against the fence, really bring the pressure to them and just grind on his opponents. That's not an option with Khamzat. You're not keeping his back against the fence and staying there. You talk about the Burns fight going to decision. I truly think that that's an anomaly as far as Khamzat Chimaev outcomes when he fights. Either way, he's the type of fighter to go out on his shield. And the way that I saw it, or what I saw in that Burns fight is, it's MMA. It could always happen that it goes to decision, but he's getting dropped. He's dropping Burns. I think if he has a few seconds longer in the first round, sells out for a submission, like, he could have finished that fight. And here against Kamaru Usman, I'm not convinced that Kamaru will ever how he will react to somebody who is bigger than him and forcing him to defensively wrestle. I think we'll see a Kamaru Usman that is a shell of himself. And Khamzat just seems like the guy that's going to break him. Okay. Like I said, I just think that it's unlikely that Kamaru's durability can withstand 15 minutes of the type of pressure that Khamzat's going to bring. And if Khamzat isn't able to implement that type of pressure, then we could have a shitter. But then that makes me think that Kamaru is winning that fight, because Khamzat's the type of guy where if he's not able to impose his will on you, we might can see some holes. But we've only seen that once with Burns, and everything else is just sheer domination. I think he continues that sheer domination here against Kamaru, who, props to him, took this fight on short notice. Yeah. Another short notice step up right here for the main event. Islam Makhachev taking on Alexander Volkanovski for the lightweight strap. Man, so when I first looked at this fight, I thought the under was the play. I thought that Alex is going to sell out early because he's taking this fight on short notice. And Islam now at in Abu Dhabi, he's going to be able to use the IV. He's going to be absolutely huge in there on Saturday. I think that there's potential for both these guys, either Islam to sell out for a submission or Alex to sell out to try and get the knockout. But truthfully, man, this is so high level, and I can't really see Volkanovski getting submitted. And if somebody is going to finish this fight, I think it's Volk. So I've been looking at possibly laying Volk inside the distance plus 500. and just putting just like a quarter unit stab on it, as opposed to trying to pick either side. I might be getting like too cute trying to do that and should just play Volkanovski plus 220. But I don't really like that. I don't like the likelihood of him winning 3 rounds over 25 minutes to beat Islam. I don't think that he has that type of gas tank. And I think if he is going to win here, he has to sell out. I think he has all the tools to be able to finish somebody like Islam, especially if he can, stop that wrestling early and make Islam work. But truth be told, man, I don't have a very confident read on this fight. So Volk inside the distance plus 500 is the only line that I like. Outside of that, this is another just sit back, enjoy the lightweight championship, have a good time.
I have a bit more of an opinion on the fight here. You got 2 of the top 3 pound-for-pound guys on the roster in a high-profile fight like this, especially watching it play out the first time. 9 times out of 10, I am on the underdog here, man. But I do think there's a lot of things going against Volk in this rematch. I don't necessarily think it's a level playing field this time. I do want to give him his props, though, 10 days notice. But if you ask Volk, this is not his ideal way of getting a second crack at Islam Makhachev. That was a close-ass fight, and I do feel like it's a fight Volk can win. But I do feel like Volk needs to be fully prepared for it. Not a Volk coming in here on 10 days notice. Not a Volk who had surgery 3 months ago. Not a Volk who had a child 7 weeks ago. Take it from someone who has a newborn. There is no time to train. There's no time to train for Islam Makhachev. And I do think it's detriment to the wrestling transitions. I think it's a detriment to his gas tank, which are 2 big factors. I think he fully needs prepared to come in here for this fight. I thought Islam had a lot more success on the feet last time out than people were thinking was going to happen. And this is a huge talking point for me. You kind of, you brought it up with the IV. I don't know. Can they really use IVs in Abu Dhabi? I don't really know, but I do think
they can use IVs anywhere, apparently, to
really?
a certain point.
I definitely think the Russian fighters are going to get preferential treatment here. But you heard Khabib mention it, man. Islam fighting over in Australia, Islam got less time than he ever had for his weight cut and to rehydrate. Islam loves fighting in Abu Dhabi. Islam gets like 11 to 15 hours, something more after weigh-ins to rehydrate, plus an IV. I have right here in my notes, I think Islam's just shy of 190 pounds when he walks in here on Saturday night. I think there's going to be a lot more success if he does find the takedown and keep in control this time around. And I do think if he wins a decision, it's a lot more dominant, 49-46 this time around. I kind of have like a gut feeling. I know you had one time on the Johnny Walker fight on how it's going to end. I think Islam knocks him out with his left head kick, man. He was blasting that to the body of Volk last time over and over again. It was really giving Volk issues. It was causing Volk to struggle with staying out at range or closing the distance. He's got the height advantage and everything. He's the southpaw fighter.
Volk just eats that, though. He ate that last fight just like it was nothing.
And he's eaten one from Max and stumbled a little bit, but I think that head kick is there. I think the head kick's what's going to lead to the finishing sequence. I thought minus 240 was a little bit low here. I don't think I don't think it's a level playing ground this time. So I have 2.5 units on Islam to return just over a unit, man. I think he's victorious Saturday in Abu Dhabi.
Nice.
That goes through all 13 fights we got lined up for us. A solid night of pay-per-views. We always love when they start early in the morning, get us a nice set of daytime fights. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Hopefully we gave out some good bets. We'll see you next week.
Peace.